Hello! I'm so glad you're joining me because we are gonna make my favorite thing to eat from Italy. We are gonna make pasta today. We're gonna start with a fresh homemade pasta from scratch. Then we're gonna make two classic pasta dishes, cacio di pepe and amatriciana. So, stay tuned. I am going to summon an Italian grandmother, Nonna, to help us with this pasta making. We're gonna make pasta from scratch for this first recipe. So, I've got two types of flour here. I've got durum wheat, which is semolina, and I've got some 00 flour. Got those mixed together. We're gonna pour those out on a wooden cutting board. You can do it on a countertop. Some people like to do it in a food processor or a stand mixer, but we're gonna do it the old-fashioned way. So, we're gonna start with our flour. We're gonna make a well. And we are going to dump our eggs in the center. Ooh, that one's just trying to escape. Get back in there. We're just gonna kind of bring the flour in and mix it, and that's okay. I'm making a mess. Typical of me in the kitchen. Have I gotten flour on myself yet? Because I think that's a running theme these days. All right, get back in the center. There we go. So what you're trying to do is just kind of incorporate the flour into the egg a little at a time. You don't always have to be perfect in the kitchen. Even us professionals have issues sometimes, but we'll fix it. We're getting that nice and incorporated. Get some more from that side. And we're just slowly bringing the pasta together. You can do this with your fingers, which I may have to do, and y'all know how I like it, and sticky fingers. You can use a fork, you can use a whisk. This is similar to cutting in butter like you would do with a pastry dough. So using the fork and just bringing in the flour a little at a time, kind of evenly distributes it. It's like cutting in the fat to flour when you make a pie dough. All right, I'm actually gonna start to use my fingers. And kind of bring this together. You don't want to overwork the dough because you don't want it to be dense when you cook it. See, we fixed it. That's why you can't be afraid to cook these recipes. Trial and error, there's always a way to fix it. Look at that. Okay, now that we've got it together, we are going to knead it. We're just trying to get the air bubbles out of it. All right. We're gonna form a ball, and then I'm gonna wrap this with some plastic wrap, at least 30 minutes, but you can let it rest as long as overnight. Once it's rested, we'll get ready to roll it out and cut our pasta sheets. Our pasta has taken its nap. It's well rested. I need to be as well. But we're gonna take this out. Let's roll it out. And you know, I'm a girl who makes do. We go with the flow, and couldn't find a rolling pin, so I'm gonna use a wine bottle. And yes, I made sure not to open it and start drinking it before we used it to roll out the pasta. So I'm gonna take half of this because I don't think we need that much to show you this technique. We're gonna use a little bit of that durum wheat flour, and this is just so it doesn't stick to your cutting board. Voila! Vino alla roller. And when you roll out any kind of dough, you want to turn it about a quarter of a turn. If it starts to get a little sticky, add a little bit more. Not too much. You don't want to dry out the pasta, just enough so that it doesn't stick. And we want to roll this out to about a quarter of an inch thick. See, even with the eggs trying to escape our flour well, this dough came together perfect. And this actually works really well. All I need, just one more use for a bottle of wine. All right, so there's a couple ways that you can actually cut your pasta. If we had a pasta roller that is countertop, or you can hook onto your KitchenAid stand mixer, you can roll this through. You start with the thickest setting, bring it down to a lower setting as you go until you get it to the thickness that you want. And then you can use that attachment to make spaghetti or fettuccine. Some of your other pasta, like a penne pasta, that you would actually have to use an extruder that creates that circular. But to hand cut, it's literally that. So let's say we wanted to do fettuccine. You just pick the size. Cut it. Pappardelle would be a little bit wider. And actually, hand-cut pappardelle sometimes has a ribbon edge, so you can use a pasta cutter as well. So let's make a pretty ribbon edge on that. This is good for ravioli too. And then once you have your pasta cut, you can either hang it up to dry and use it as dry pasta, or you can actually put a little bit of flour on it, kind of create a nest. You do want to cover that so that the oxygen doesn't dry it out, and you can keep it fresh for about 3 days. Now let's make one of Italy's most classic pasta dishes, cacio di pepe, black pepper and cheese. So I'm using dried spaghetti today for this recipe, but we've already got that started. The worst thing you can do in this dish, if you want to be cursed by an Italian, is use butter or oil. So we are not going to do that. What we are actually going to do is we are going to add our pecorino cheese in our pan. And really, this doesn't even need any additional heat. We're going to do black peppercorns. You can crush this fresh, or you can use a pepper mill. And once that pasta is done, we're going to take that straight out of the water. We're going to put it over the cheese, and we're going to use a little of our starchy pasta water just to kind of melt that cheese and make it all meld together. And we'll have cacio di pepe. Our pasta's ready. We've got the pecorino in here. We have black pepper. Don't be shy. Put black pepper in this. It's part of the name of the dish, cacio di pepe, so for the pepper. So don't skimp on the pepper. Take the pasta out. And remember, no oil, no butter. And now we're going to take some of our starch water from the pasta. That warm water is going to help melt the cheese and make this all come together. Super simple dish. You could actually do this in a mixing bowl. You don't even have to do it over heat. I'm gonna add a little bit more pecorino. It's that simple. We're gonna put it on a plate and we are gonna enjoy this. Let's plate our cacio di pepe. And you know I like to make my nest, so twirl, twirl, twirl. Get some height on that plate. I am going to throw some more pecorino on that. And like I said, don't be afraid of that pepper. Oh my goodness, look at that. That's gonna add so much flavor. Great with a nice glass of wine. I don't know where mine is, but I definitely need one to eat with this pasta, cacio di pepe. For our second recipe, we are going to make amatriciana. I hope I said that right. But this is one of the classic pasta dishes in Italy. There are 4, as I mentioned before, and what I wanted to say was what makes these different pastas is really just changing out 4 ingredients. So pecorino, guanciale. For this recipe, we're gonna add tomatoes and pepper. For this recipe, we're gonna use red pepper instead of black pepper. But those are the 4 simple ingredients that get integrated differently to change those 4 dishes. So let's get started on our second pasta. All right, let's put our amatriciana together. We're gonna put our guanciale in our pan that we've gotten hot. No need to add oil because there's enough fat in the guanciale to render. So we'll have enough fat content from that. In my recipe, we're gonna add a little bit of onion just to add another layer of flavor. And we can put that in because that will actually sweat with the guanciale as that renders. Get that up a little higher. And then while we're working on browning and rendering the fat from the guanciale, we can go ahead and start our pasta using a dried spaghetti, and that's gonna take probably about 8 minutes or so. You can usually cook a little bit under, a little bit less than al dente because we're gonna add that to our sauce, and it'll cook for another minute once we get it in the sauce. So we've got nice crispy guanciale rendered. Pasta's ready. Let's finish this. I'm gonna deglaze the pan with some white wine. I'm gonna pull it off the heat. We don't want my false eyelashes catching on fire. We're gonna deglaze that pan, let a little bit of that alcohol cook off. We'll still get the flavor. We just want, well, I drink enough wine. We don't wanna get drunk on the pasta sauce. We're gonna add some whole peeled tomatoes, and I'm just gonna crush it. So we aren't eating whole tomatoes, but we still want some nice chunky texture. Put that in the pan. Let that marry. Good thing we're only making 2 pastas on this episode, or I'd have to change my dress into a bigger one. All right, let's take our pasta out of the water. Into the pan. Now, we could add some starch water if we want to. I don't want this to be too soupy though. So I think the water from the tomatoes is enough. You don't really need to add more, unless you're finding that it's too watery and you need that starch to kind of thicken it up. And then you could add a little bit more. We're gonna add our pepper. I'm using crushed red pepper for this one. Add as much as you like, depending on your spice tolerance. I like it spicy, or saucy, as I should say. All right, we are ready to plate. Y'all, I am so hungry, so let's get this plated. It looks really good. Oh. You've got the fresh tomatoes, the guanciale, some red pepper. I'm gonna wipe that off real quick. I'm using some restraint right now because in Italy they don't eat a ton of pasta like I would in Texas. This whole thing would be full. Just for color, not traditional, but since my last name's Basil, I gotta use some basil. Let's just put some on for color. Amatriciana. I know I did, and I'm not sure about you. Did you have to go change into stretchy pants after we made all this pasta? I'm okay with that because I've got lots of those at home. Pasta's my favorite thing, so if you want these recipes and my other recipes, go to jenniferbasil.com.